And he ran before and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste, and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste, and came down, and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying, that he was gone to be guest with a man that is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. And Jesus said unto him, This day is salvation come to this house, forsomuch as he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. You may be seated. We look tonight and we see that as we understand about Zacchaeus, I see one thing that was on Zacchaeus' mind. And you probably see the same thing. That he wanted to see Jesus. That was Zacchaeus' sole desire. That he wanted to see Jesus. And that's what we're going to speak about tonight. I just want to see Jesus. We all know about the tax collector, don't we? We have, if you live in the country, we have what we call the county taxes. And you'll have your vehicle taxes. We hate paying taxes, don't we? Do you enjoy paying taxes? I mean, everywhere you go and everything that you do, you have to pay taxes on it. If you go to the grocery store, you got to pay taxes. If you go get something to eat, you got to pay taxes. If you go to buy just goods, you got to pay taxes. There's taxes everywhere. You get your paycheck, and what have you paid? Taxes. That's right. You work for a living. You go out every day. The ones of you that hadn't retired. But you go out every day. And you work hard for your living. Yet at the end of the week, or end of 2 weeks, before you get your paycheck, the government's already taken their part. It doesn't matter to them how much you get. They're going to get their share. They're going to get what they want. And you know, the big thing about it, there's nothing that you can do about it. If you don't pay your taxes, what's going to happen? Well, you'll go to jail. You can eventually wind up in jail for tax evasion. You lose everything you got. You won't have nothing. And there it is. It's just what it is. I believe if you think about, you go buy a gallon of gasoline. I believe in North Carolina, I believe it's somewhere between 45 and 48 cents a gallon taxes on a gallon of gas that you pay just in the state of North Carolina. So you and I, we're very acquainted with taxes. From the first time that you start purchasing anything, you become accustomed to taxes. I begin to think about Zacchaeus here. And the Bible said that Zacchaeus is a tax collector. Well, we already know he's got a strike against him, do we not? He's the one that's going around to everybody and saying your taxes is due. On top of him being a tax collector, he's crooked. Because the story informs us of this. The very parable that Jesus is telling us, it informs us of this, that he's a crook, he's a thief. That he's taking extra money and adding extra taxes to people for his own personal gain. He's just embezzling funds from people and just salting it away. And so he's a rich man taking advantage of somebody that cannot contest what he's doing. Isn't that one of the things that probably frustrates you the most when you know something's wrong and there's nothing you can do about it? Or nothing that you feel helpless, that you cannot change the situation? I understand that we're in for a big round of tax hikes. I understand that, our taxes are going to be raised and that tax cuts that we've experienced in the past are going to be rolled back. Well, I already know that a few years ago, and I've told you this, and I'll just mention it briefly and I'll roll on. I've already told you in the past that, it used to take us until the second week of May, I believe it is, to get our taxes paid. We worked for the government the first 4.5 months of the year just to pay your taxes. And now taxes are such that now we're working now up into September to get your taxes paid, just because of the people that come under the name of Uncle Sam are perverting everything that they've done. See, I feel like that they're probably thieves too. I feel like that they're probably unjustly taxing us. I feel like that they're just expanding the budget, doing things that ought not to be done. I mean, come on. $10 million grant to fund some kind of protection for some kind of little old frog in California. If God don't want the frog to die, it won't die. It might have to move to Mexico, but it can live in Mexico a whole lot cheaper. I mean, there's just crazy things. It's called pork projects that are built into the budget of the United States to buy people's votes. And it's all saddled upon the back of the taxpayer. And so when I look at this, and this is not a political rally, but we're just associating ourselves as taxpayers with what these people were feeling towards Zacchaeus as a taxpayer. And so we understand that, a lot of stuff's going on and we can't do nothing about it. You vote them in, you vote them out. You vote them in straight and they come out crooked, Politics is probably not a place for a just man because absolute power corrupts, does it not? And people get up there and they get all these people and they become isolated. I feel like that if you were to look at the Congress and the Senate, I feel like it's kind of a glass house that they're in, and they live in their own world, and it's a totally different world than what the real world that you and I live in is. Because just things are so much different. It's a life of entitlement. That they are just taken care of. Their insurance is not like your insurance and my insurance. They don't have to worry about footing the bill for it. They go to the hospital, stuff's taken care of. They don't worry about the hospital bill. It's a perk of the job. And so be it. That's what it is. I'm not standing here crying over spilled milk. But that's just the way it is. But unjust things happen because they get wrapped up in all of these things. And then that incessant need for more and more and more, it just grows and grows and grows. And people just like you and me are the ones that at times resentfully pay it. There are times that we feel resentful about having to pay those very taxes. Don't you wish you could get the tax value of your home, your properties, your vehicles? The vehicle's worth more to the county than it is to anybody else. You certainly couldn't sell it for that. But the county don't drop it, do they? No. It's just an unjust practice because they have to raise revenue. And so we understand now. We feel, even though there's nobody knocking on our door collecting taxes, the mail person is delivering it to us and we have to pay those taxes. And so Zacchaeus is the door-to-door tax man. He's coming by. And he's just going and telling this one, that one, and the other. I don't know if he's collecting chickens and everything else and whatever's going on, but Zacchaeus is getting money. He's getting something to pay the debt of taxes, to make the government go. And so Zacchaeus hears about Jesus Christ. And he's intrigued. There's no doubt in my mind that Zacchaeus had had many sermons from people telling him, how wrong he was and what a thief and what a crook he was. We can be righteous when we want to. We can tell a good testimony about Jesus Christ when we just want to let somebody know how bad they are. Can we not? We can do it, can't we? We can tell them just that they're going to get theirs. You can keep on stealing, you can keep on doing this, you can do what you want to, but your day's coming, buddy. That's what I'm trying to say. We can do that, can we not? We feel that way. And so we understand that he's probably got these sermons from the people, but now the man in whom they're talking about is coming down the street. Zacchaeus, no doubt, heard about him, wants to see him, just like everybody else is seeing him. But Zacchaeus has got a problem, friend. Mama, I'm not talking about you, so don't you feel like I'm talking about you. But I know a lot of people in the business world, or no, I don't. Let me rephrase that. I know some people in the business world that are vertically challenged. Sometimes they get a Napoleon complex. You know, Napoleon, he was vertically challenged. And I know some, and Brother Jay, I ain't talking, you borderline, you know what I'm saying? You ain't short, but you ain't tall. But I won't talk about you. There you go. As long as it ain't over 6 feet, right? But they have a complex, you know, when they make up for it in their attitude for being short. And sometimes their attitudes can be a little overbearing, or they can be a little bit more aggressive. They come across in many different ways, you know. They might have a big bark. I may not know, their bite may not be all that bad, but they might sound like a Rottweiler, and they might not be nothing but a Chihuahua. You understand what I'm saying? They have these things, these coping mechanisms to help them to overcome things that they really couldn't help. I can't help how tall I am. I mean, I grew till I quit growing, and that's where I stopped. And just like you do. But everybody's legs is as long as everybody else, ain't they? They all reach to the floor. But nevertheless, you know, Zacchaeus being short, he's challenged. He's vertically challenged. He can't see over the crowd. Everywhere people's talking about Jesus, they're lining the streets. It's almost like a parade. And Zacchaeus is standing on his tiptoes. He might even be jumping up and down. And he's trying to see who Jesus is. He's trying to pick him out of the crowd. Who is this man that they're talking about? Who is this man I've heard about? I want to see him for myself. I want to know what he looks like for myself. And so here he is. He's trying to get his way through. You know, it's harder for adults to make their way through a wall of people than it is to children. You ever taken your children to like a parade? And you'll find you a place where you can see through this, between the shoulders and the head of this and that, and you can see through there, you got a window. And the children are saying, I can't see, I can't see. You put them on your shoulders and you hear people mumbling behind you, can't see, can't, and they mumbling, and you put the kids down and you look at them and say, well, what you want me to do? I can't go no further. And the children know just how to hit the knees and boom. And they'll go right to the front and they turn around and grin at you. Boy, I sound experienced, don't I? They'll turn around and grin at you and say, I'm here. And you're thinking, oh Lord, what they going to do? The next thing they'll do is they'll be on the float. You know, talking to them. But nevertheless, they have a way. But adults just can't seem to do that. It becomes offensive to other people when they try to root them out of their place. So Zacchaeus is trying to see him. He's not giving up. I want to say that that's a testament to the character of Zacchaeus. That he had the attitude that he wasn't going to give up. He had set his mind. He had set his desire to the fact that he wanted to see who Jesus Christ was. He wanted to lay his eyes on him, and he wasn't going to be denied. And so as Zacchaeus is there, he begins to think about things. He realizes I can't see over them. I can't see through them. I can't jump up and down but so long, and I can't pick the men out. So Zacchaeus starts looking for things to help him to see Jesus Christ. So the Bible tells us that as Zacchaeus is in the crowd, that he goes and he finds him a sycamore tree. Is that right? A sycamore tree. And what are the things about a sycamore tree? Well, what I know about a sycamore tree, that a sycamore tree is a slick tree. It don't have bark on it like a pine tree. And it don't have things where you can get a grip like on an oak tree. A sycamore tree can be a difficult tree to get up. I think you could get down real easy. But getting up is a horse of a different color. It takes probably a little bit of skill, not unless there's some well-positioned branches to which you can grab and climb. And remember, Zacchaeus is challenged. So there's got to be branches in the right place. And he's a grown man. And so they can't be weak branches either, can they? They've got to be branches that'll be able to sustain him, to hold him up in that tree. He's looking around. He's saying, I'm going to climb this tree. I used to like to climb trees when I was a little boy. Y'all like to climb trees when you were young? I'd climb up in them pecan trees at Grandma's house. And I'd get up there and I'd shoot right on up in them things. But one thing that I found, that the higher I got, the thinner the branches got, and the more uncomfortable it felt in that tree. And I found that going up sometimes was a whole lot easier than coming down to me. How in the world could I find ways to climb that tree? Because I was always looking up. I was looking for the next strategic place to put my foot and stretch out. And I've always felt that when I was going up, my body bent better. And things always looked further down than they did when I was going up. Like when I was here, it always looked a little bit further than what it really was when I was trying to get down. You know? Trying to stretch for that next branch to get your foot on it to come down. But nevertheless, he found a way to climb that tree. It speaks to his character that I'm not going to be denied. He had to be tough. He's a tax collector. He takes all kind of insult. He does gets all kinds of things. So he's got to be mentally tough. But he says, I'm not giving up. This is something that these people are not going to deny me to do. I think sometimes it behooves you and I that if we could just be a little bit more mentally tougher when we're dealing with the Lord Jesus Christ. Or we could be just a little bit more emphatic in dealing with Him. Well, Lord, I'm not going to be denied on this. Lord, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit. Lord, I'm going to keep on. Lord, I'm not giving up. Sometimes we have a tendency to give up too quick on God. We have a tendency to turn our back and say, well, Lord, if you haven't answered it by now, then Lord, I don't know that you will, but do we know God's plan? Do we know the scope of everything that God is doing? The one thing that I've found out in my experience in living for the Lord that, I'm not the only one praying. There's other people praying. There's other people calling on the name of the Lord, but most times, in my experience, God just don't work on one side. God works both sides. God makes it work on both sides to where all things work to good for them that love Him and are called according to His purpose. We're not worried about the other side, are we? We're worried about what's in our yard. We're worried about what's going on with us. But I am so thankful because there's been times in your life and there's been times in my life when we were on the other side. And the Lord was working on our behalf. Even though He was answering a prayer over here, He was still working on this need. And we were benefactors of what God was doing. Zacchaeus climbs that tree. He finds a way to get up in that tree. And he positions himself and he waits. Isn't waiting one of the hardest things that we do in serving the Lord Jesus Christ? I know we're all patient people. I know that we have patience abounding. That we just got plenty and we could share it with anybody. Nothing ever worries us. We never get anxious or uptight about anything. We never wish anybody would hurry up. Huh? We heard that little song pulling up in the parking lot. You may have heard it too. About the guy going to teach Sunday school at church. Huh? Sitting at the stoplight and somebody blows the horn. And he says a few words and makes a few funny faces, and the person behind him's grinning and honking the horn, and he's just going off, and he's just thinking and said, what is this person doing behind me? And then he says, I remember the bumper sticker on my old truck, and it said, honk if you love Jesus. So that behind him's just doing what he said he was asked him to do. If you love Jesus, honk the horn. And he comes to find out that it was the guest preacher at his church. But we don't get impatient at the stoplight, do we? I do. Especially Monday through Friday trying to get to Carroll Middle School. Lord, have mercy. I still hadn't got a hold of the concept while we sit still at a green light. You know? And I sit there and I'll say, go. It won't get no greener, lady. Go. See, Riley's even saying amen now. I even got Riley and Ethan doing a little bit. What you waiting on? Let's go. I'll tell on one of the people in the building tonight. Here I am one day trying to get to school. I'm just sitting there at the ice machine. You know where Jimmy Seafood at? Stoplight at Jimmy Seafood. Well, I took the shortcut so I wouldn't get caught in that long turn lane. And I come out at the ice machines and I wheel up and I'm sitting there because you do a rolling stop. You know, if you see daylight, you go for it. And I'm sitting there and I see somebody come by me and I said, oh Lord, I know who that is. Well, it was Tina. Both hands on the wheel and locked down. She looked like she was trying to land an airplane. So she goes on down the road and I'm trying to get out. I get across the railroad tracks. You get up there close to KFC. You know you can cut through there and you can take that little short shot through there, or you can go to Walgreens. You have to play the lights. You have to think about who's going this way, and you look at the car and you examine who's driving and all these things. If you think they're going to sit at the stop sign forever, you better to go through the light. All these things working in the mind because we're pressing against the clock. You would say you leave earlier, but it don't matter how early you get up. You're always pressing. So we got up 10 minutes earlier the other morning. It didn't help a bit. Left, everything 10 minutes earlier didn't help a bit. We still managed to get in this predicament. But nevertheless, I get up there and the line stopped. I said, who in the world is holding up this line? Guess who it was? Yeah. And I'm thinking, I said, man, come on, let's go. We got to go. So I finally get out there on Fayetteville Avenue and I put them horses under the hood to work and we getting on down the road, and when I went by her at the high school, she was looking like this. You see, sometimes we get short on patience and we don't like to wait. We feel the pressures of time. Sometimes it's insignificant things. Sometimes it's things where it really shouldn't bother us at all. It all depends on our state of mind, how long our patience is. That is the truth. If we're calm and everything's going good and we're just having, oh well, it's all right. It's nothing but a thing. We can make it through. But if waves are crashing in on the storage, get out of the way. Will you move? Please, do something. That's the way we feel. In Robinson County, if you want your patience tested, you just try to get through there on a school morning and you'll find that there's plenty of people that ain't not one hurry whatsoever. They love to sightsee. You know, that same old road every day. 40, 45. Or the farmer wanting to get out early. And he'll line traffic up 3 miles behind him and won't bother to pull off the road to let you by. It can test your patience. But you'll feel good that I don't cuss them and I don't do nothing like that and I don't talk bad about them. The worst I get is say, will you go? Come on, let's go. That's as bad as I get. I hope that makes you feel a little better. I know I'm probably the only one that does it. But nevertheless, because I know nobody else is like that. But I'm talking about those patients. And we get the same way with God. God, are you going to meet this need? God, are you going to help me? We get to the place to where we say, where are you? I can't feel you. I don't even know if you hear me. I don't even know if you care. We get to feeling those things. Have you ever felt those things? Sure you have. It's an emotion. It's just a thing that we have to battle with. Because the Lord hadn't moved in the allotted space that we gave Him. Our patience wears thin. Sometimes we don't have the ability to wait. But the Bible tells us that sometimes we do have to wait. The Bible tells us that sometimes we do have to stand still so that we may see the salvation of God. How many blessings have we cheated ourselves out of? How many good things from God have we cheated ourselves out of because we refuse to wait and see what God would do? Zacchaeus wasn't going to do that. He said, I've heard it until I'm going to find out for myself. And he climbs up in that sycamore tree. He gets him a seat where nobody can block his... It have took a giraffe to block Zacchaeus' view. And they won't no giraffes. And so he sees Jesus coming down the street. This man, the throngs of people are mobbing him. Everybody's calling out a petition, calling out requests. Those that believe, there are some doubters and scoffers in the crowd, as there are every crowd. Some that are just cynical of what's going on. But there are those that are their life is hanging in the balance of hearing from Jesus Christ. And Zacchaeus is one of these. And so he's sitting in the tree, and never did Zacchaeus expect that he would find an invitation of Jesus Christ for him to come down and invite himself to Zacchaeus' house. But because Zacchaeus persevered, because Zacchaeus had patience to wait upon the Lord, guess what? He had a face-to-face conversation with the Son of God. And all Zacchaeus' desire was that I may see Him. That I may see the Lord for myself. It wasn't to talk to Him. It wasn't to be touched by Him. It wasn't for Him to cast that gleaming eye at Him. It was just that I may see Him. And you know what that brings to my mind? Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'll tell you. It brings to my mind that sometimes even though we may not feel that touch of Him, if we can just see Him in what's going on, it changes everything. Because Zacchaeus seeing Him, making eye contact with Him, the Lord comes over to him and says, come on down, I'm going to your house. There are people that can't believe that Jesus would go to this thief's house. But can I tell you one of the things that really reached out to me and what I read to you is that Jesus really said nothing other than, Zacchaeus, come down, I'm going to your house. And Zacchaeus, all by himself, he says, Lord, he says, I'm going to give back that which I've taken from people. And that which I've taken unlawfully, I'm going to restore it fourfold. Times 4. I'm going to restore it to them. Jesus didn't say, Zacchaeus, sell all you have and give it to the poor. Zacchaeus, seeing Him, realizing who He was, and knowing that everything that they say about Him is true just because He senses truly this is the Son of God. He's compelled within his heart to change before Jesus ever says a word. I'm telling you, that's what we've got to have. When we go looking for Jesus, knowing that when we find Him, He really doesn't have to speak a word to compel us to do things to draw closer to Him. If we can just see Him and understand who He is and understand what He's all about, and we don't give up on the drive, we don't give up on our hopes of seeing Him, if we just be patient just a little bit. What a change that Jesus Christ can make in our life. Then Jesus says about Zacchaeus, this day is salvation come to your house. Because his heart was pierced. His conscience was pierced. Zacchaeus saw the greater meaning of life. And I want you to know tonight that Jesus Christ is the greater meaning to life. But Jesus brings such simplicity to life, that when we know that we have Him, that we have everything. That we have everything that we need to take us through this life. There are people that have sold their souls for fame, for wealth, for fortune, for money, notoriety. And what does it get you? You hear celebrities talk about that they can't hardly go out in public without people thronging them, and they can't go out to eat, enjoy a meal without somebody asking for an autograph. I remember one time I asked for a person's autograph. I've done it a couple times, not many times. I think just a couple, to be honest with you. One of them was Benny Parsons. Y'all familiar with Benny Parsons? He was a race car driver, NASCAR circuit. Amy was graduating from Pembroke for the second time. She got her master's, I believe it was. And I was standing out there. Brother Jerry and Sister Mary, we were standing out there, and I got looking at this big old tall fella. And I said, ain't that Benny Parsons? And so I walked over there and got his autograph. But after I got his autograph, you know, there was just something going on in my mind. Why you want his autograph for? Why you want his autograph? And you know, I got thinking about it. I got the best one that I could ever get when Jesus Christ signed His name on my life and sealed me with His love. I don't even know where it's at today. I did meet Ozzie Smith. I don't know if y'all know Ozzie Smith. Ozzie Smith was a Hall of Fame shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals. I met him, and I got him to sign a baseball bat that I'd bought for the boys, and he signed one to Ethan and one to Riley. They don't even know who he is. But they might one day. They might know one day. But I remember that what I remember about Ozzie Smith is that he's a super nice guy. One of the most down-to-earth people that I've ever met in my life. One of the friendliest guys I've ever met in my life. That he sit there and I watched a baseball game with him for 7 innings. And he just taught me things about baseball that I just didn't know, that I didn't know to look for. He knew his craft. But his autograph's not going to do me any good. They might get in a pinch and somebody might want to buy it from them one day. It might mean something. It might mean a couple, $3 to them. But it won't never be nothing big. It's not a life-changing thing. You know, Elvis. How many people are still crazy about Elvis today? If Elvis was singing today, he couldn't do nothing but this. He couldn't wiggle no more. He'd just have to get down like this and hold on to the microphone stand. But there's still people that just love Elvis. How long has he been dead? where he'd pat his forehead with a handkerchief and throw it out there and they'd pass out. Lord, have mercy. Star power. Notoriety. It's hard for them to deal with all the things that go along with it. They want their privacy. They don't want people to be so intrusive. But yet they do the very things that cause people to be intrusive. Can I tell you about Jesus? Jesus never sent them away. Jesus wanted them to know who He was. He always wanted them to call upon Him and to trust Him. He would have compassion on them. He fed the 5,000, did He not? The disciples said, Lord, let's send them away while there's still time for them to get to the market and get them something. And Jesus said, no. They've been with us 3 days and haven't eaten. They've been listening to Jesus preach and teach and seeing Him do miracles for 3 days and hadn't left Him. And the Bible says that Jesus had compassion on them and said, what have we got? Well, there's a boy with some loaves and some fish. And Jesus said, bring it here. And so they bring the loaves and the fish. And Jesus begins to bless it and it begins to multiply. And He feeds that whole congregation. Not because He had to, but because He loved them. Because He wanted them to see that in spite of all things, and whatever they may feel, that He loved them and cared about them. And He cares about you and I the same way. They stayed 3 days, 72 hours. We find it hard to stay for 72 minutes, don't we? Sure we do. We're geared that way. We're trained that way. Not to stay anywhere long. But if we're going to see Jesus, we're going to have to learn how to tarry. We're going to have to learn how to be patient. We're going to have to learn how to be trusting. We're going to have to learn that good things come to those who wait on the Lord. But we've got to get it in our minds, in our hearts, in our desire. If I can just see Jesus. Do we want to see Him? And as we think about and we want to see Him, what are we looking for? And I'm winding up. What are we looking for? How do we want to see Him? Zacchaeus was curious. But his curiosity led him to salvation. When we see Jesus, sometimes we see Him as Savior, sometimes we see Him as healer, sometimes we see Him as a counselor. We see Him in so many different things. But we must see Him as the Son of God. The Lamb that takes away the sins of mankind. And when we view Him through that prism, when we view Him in that way, it helps us to understand, you know what? He is God. And there's nothing in my life that if I will just wait for Him, the Lord will help us. The Lord will attend unto our needs. I love Him, don't you? I thank Him for everything that He's done in our life. He's a good God, is He not? How many Zacchaeuses we got? You may not be a thief. You may not be a tax collector. But you want to see Jesus for yourself. I want to see Him for myself. If it's climbing a tree, then that's what I'll do. If it's kneeling down by the roadside and just waiting, then that's what I'll do. If it's standing in a line and waiting for Him to come by, that I may touch the hem of His garment, or pressing through that crowd, whatever it is, when Jesus is coming by, that's what I want to do. Because I want to see Him. I want him to know that he means the most to me. And folks, I want to tell you tonight, I want to be very plain, that in serving the Lord and living for the Lord, he's got to be number one. The wife or the husband can't be in front of him. The mama or the daddy can't be in front of him. The children can't be in front of him. Or nobody else, no thing can be in front of him. He's got to be number one. He's got to hold it by himself. No 1A's, no 1B's. He's the one. He's number one. You can have all 2A through 2Z if you choose. But he's got to be number one in our life. Him and him alone. And I believe that's where focus has been lost in folks today. That it's all become a blur. But if we'll get back to that, we'll see the power of God restored. We'll see the move of God restored. We'll see the joy of the Lord rebirthed in the lives of people. When we can sing that song, I must tell Jesus. I must see Jesus. I must touch Jesus. He'll reward your determination with blessing after blessing. Let's stand.